yeah. It doesn't even have to be a female.
Oh.
I will talk about the moment when when Final Fantasy specifically lost understanding of its fan base.
What was this moment?
It was when Final Fantasy X-2 came out. And it was essentially
They did little dances and
it was
they
essentially
changed
Spice
outfits.
Girls, the video game.
Yeah, that's true.
And like every time you change you change class, you change your clothes. Like you had to accessorize. You know.
Yeah, it was awful.
But you know what? It opened up a new world for cosplayers everywhere.
Well, of course you would say. Of course you would say that.
But you know.
Miss Yuna herself over here.
Woo!
She could go as Mary.
Look, I got a gun arm, homie.
What kind of gun is that?
That's a
Limp wrist gun?
limp metal type gun.
Welcome to That's Old, a show where RPG nerds come together and discuss video games, movies, and TV. I'm your host, Jordan Wade, and today's topic is RPGs, East versus West. On the panel I have with me, Bryan McBallz.
Rasheed's lame.
Rasheed Rawsheezy.
Brian sucks.
And Misfitgurl herself, Kristina.
I'm the best. Boom! No.
We started this conversation with lies.
Yep.
We're already, it's a great start already. Let's just go ahead and jump right into this. So I'm going to go through and ask, where your allegiances lie. And Kristina, I'm going to start with you. Where do you stand on this?
Eastern for sure. I started with the Final Fantasy series, and then I kind of worked my way up. And recently, there's not a whole lot of JRPGs out there, but the ones that I have played are the Tales series and the Star Ocean series, and they've actually still held their timeless ability in compared to the newer Western RPGs that are coming out.
Okay, fair enough. Bryan, where does your allegiance stand?
Very, very complex question. I started out as a wee lad on the Super Nintendo. Final Fantasy, Secret of Mana, Lufia, all the JRPG must-plays of the SNES. But I feel that in recent times,
today,
modern video game, the Japanese RPGs have started to fall, and the Western are rising.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well,
and what are some franchises
examples of that are
this,
the BioWare RPGs. You got
so that's Mass Effect.
You got Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Knights of the Old Republic.
Okay. It's
and then you also
Age, but
yep. I already said it, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it's interesting you say that, but continue on, yes.
Yeah, and then you have Fallout 3, Fallout Vegas. You have the pseudo RPGs that have also come out. I mean, they have Kingdom of Amalur.
Yes.
That was Western developed. Darksiders. I mean, there's Western RPGs are starting to shoot up.
Yeah. Rasheed, you have an interesting stance on this altogether. Where does your allegiance stand?
Well, if you look back in the 90s, if you look back in the 90s, we have really good Japanese RPGs, right? But now, I'm going to have to agree with him on this point. Western RPGs are definitely on the rise. Okay. But there's certain elements that the Japanese still dominate in. One thing I'm very curious about is I want to hear what his current Japanese RPGs are falling right now. That's what I want to hear, actually, from him.
Okay, so Bryan, what do you feel right now what is your current opinion on Japanese RPGs? Like, where do you think they stand as opposed to Western RPGs?
I think that there used to be a turn-based battle system that was kind of standard in a lot of JRPGs back then. They've deviated away from that because they believe people are tired of it. But I believe the opposite. I think that the turn-based style of battle system is still relevant. And I will actually name one modern JRPG I enjoyed was Lost Odyssey, because it had a classic battle system, turn-based, active time battle, and the story was good. But now it's they're like, okay, everybody's tired of turn-based. All the kids want this, so they're trying to make all these wacky battle systems, and hardly any of them work out. And also, I feel like story tropes, the JRPG follows a list of story tropes. Every hero must be a young orphan kid who has no parents.
Yeah.
He destroys monsters, warlord generals. But this is a little kid who started out on a farm as an orphan. But every RPG, they follow these tropes. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's interesting you say that. I want to hear Kristina's side of it first, because Kristina has played quite a bit of she plays Eastern RPGs fairly often.
Right.
Do you think that Bryan has a valid point in this stuff, or do you think there's some positives to the Eastern RPG?
I mean, I think they're trying to deviate away from the typical hero that they make. I'm still working on the game, but Eternal Sonata for the 360, it basically follows this journey through this musical land, and of course all the town names are after, like treble and clef and like things like that. So they use a bunch of musical terms, but it was kind of neat how they did this story just based on music and kind of altered it with history too. So it was different than what I was usually expecting out of a JRPG, and it surprised me. And same thing with the battle system, though. I do agree with you there that they're trying to deviate away from the turn-based and go more towards, hey, let's do something new and unique that no one's ever done. But it doesn't necessarily work because in the Western market, they've dominated that different play style of battling and, shooting, whatever it may be.
So you agree that some of the play styles that they choose are not necessarily warranted? Like if a system's not broken, you probably shouldn't fix it, right? I mean, do you agree? Because he was
right.
Yeah.
I mean, so many classic JRPGs, they had a set turn-based battle system, and it worked. It was fun. There was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But they were worried that they were going to bore people, so they tried to change it. And now I think honestly, people want to go back to the basics.
Rasheed, I'm sure you have something to say about all this, about what Bryan has brought up, and also just about the turn-based combat in general. I mean, what do you think about right now?
Turn-based combat I think it's a great system. Western, they've deviated from that a little bit, and I don't think they're going to evolve at the current state that they're in now. Like for instance, Fallout. I love Fallout. As honky as that engine is, I love that game.
Yeah.
And the problem, I think, is and that has a great battle system. It's very unique.
Right, the bat system.
But like Mass Effect, it's sort of a blend, like towards turn-based, and it's free roaming. But I don't think it's a good battle system. I don't think it's a good battle system in terms of compared to just turn-based, because turn-based there's a lot more strategy.
Bryan, you're a big fan of turn-based, as you just pointed out, but what brought you to Western RPGs then? Because obviously many of them don't have, I mean, there is sort of the hybrid thing, like you're saying with Mass Effect and with Fallout and stuff like that, but why do you enjoy Western RPGs more than modern Eastern RPGs or JRPGs?
It's not that I don't like JRPGs. Like I still love my classics. I'll still go play Chrono Trigger every year, or Shining Force 2, or Lufia 2, and I love those games.
Yeah.
But I feel like modern JRPGs, I tried to dabble. I played Eternal Sonata, and I think some of that is interesting. I like how it's basically a dream that Chopin is having.
Right.
And it has some interesting points, but there is not one character in that game over the age of 15. And I feel like maybe it's because I'm a grown-ass man now, but I don't relate to these bubbly-eyed children who are kicking ass.
Are these sexually androgynous type characters?
Androgynous heroes.
But you'll relate to a character that you cannot even remember who he... Jack Shepherd.
Shepherd's awesome.
That guy is boring. He reminds me of...
well, here's the thing. The protagonist is not usually a hero, even in the JRPG. How many silent RPG heroes do you have? Chrono? Chrono doesn't say a fucking word in the whole game.
We got Ryu.
Link? Ryu doesn't say anything in a lot of the games either.
Yeah, but their personality is explained throughout the characters, through their party.
I doubt it.
But see, if you look closely, for instance, Chrono Trigger, okay? All the characters that interact with him, you get to get a piece of Chrono through these other characters. Definitely. You got his love interest?
You get his little emotes every once in a while, and there's like 5 of them. So like someone's sad and then Chrono will go. Or like there's something shocking and Chrono goes.
You bring up like these heroes in the Western RPGs are not memorable. I find them pretty memorable because Shepard is a Shepard that I create and stuff like that. So Shepard has meaning for each person that plays through the game. So as a template, Shepard is boring, of course, because Shepard by itself is, there's nothing to happen. But Shepard is characterized by what you've taken them through.
You brought me here to confirm what you already know. The Reapers are here.
At the core of the argument between Eastern and Western RPGs, forgive me, is that Eastern obviously has a stronger presence of style and art style and just the aura and the atmosphere and everything like that. While Western RPGs is more about the adventuring and about kind of creating your own path and stuff like that. So, and JRPG, I mean, is that mostly the case that you come across where there's not a whole lot of free roaming as far as the story, but the story you get is orchestrated and created to be experienced in a certain way? Is that something? Is that why you enjoy Eastern RPGs?
I enjoy them because they give me the freedom I want, and it's not too little and it's not too much. They always typically have the same linear path, and towards the end of the game, as you're getting to the final boss, the whole world opens up and you get to, you know, do all these kind of side quests and things to, you know, grind your character before the final fight.
Right.
In Western RPGs, the worlds are so immense and vastly open that I almost get lost in them, which I enjoy that. You know, I enjoy the crazy, you know, free roaming worlds like in Skyrim and things like that. But at the same time, I almost feel like I'm going to get lost and I'm never going to fully beat the game.
Okay.
You know, with JRPGs, it's one of those games like, oh, I want to play through this again a second time around because you only spend 40 hours on it.
Right.
Whereas, you know, if you play through any of the Western RPGs, really, it's a one playthrough game, but it's so vast and so open that you can play it so many different ways and spend tons and tons of hours on it and not even be done. Right.
So, Brian, and when you're playing a Western RPG, is that one of the things you really enjoy? Is the fact that you can spend nearly limitless hours? Like Skyrim, I'm currently doing my first playthrough of Skyrim. I waited a long time to do it, but I'm like 35 hours in, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface.
Yep.
And to me, I find that interesting because, you know, I can kind of go off and do different things and not have to worry about the main story, but at the same time, I feel like I'm gaining ground and growing in the story and stuff like that. Is that what you enjoy about the modern Western RPG?
It's a different experience for sure.
Yeah.
To choose your own path, just do what the hell you want to do.
Yeah.
And it's enjoyable. Skyrim is a big example because that game is gigantic.
Right.
But I would I'll lay out Mass Effect or Dragon Age in a comparison. It's not as open.
Right. I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, you don't just run out in the wild and do what you want. There's several like forks in the road you choose. And this is how most BioWare games are. And you kind of pick and choose how you approach the story.
Yeah.
It's like a la carte. You know, you go up to the line and you get to pick what you want. And in JRPGs, and I'm going to reference the modern ones. Like I tried to play Final Fantasy 13, which is basically one long hallway.
Yes.
You run down a hallway for 60 hours, and every once in a while there's a cutscene. And I feel like I'm being like, it's like someone tied me to a chair and is like force feeding me some, you know. And I don't know, it wasn't an enjoyable experience for me.
Okay.
Even the battle system held your hand for the first like 20 hours. It's like a 20-hour tutorial.
Yeah.
Well, and see, I feel like that's more than anything, that's the biggest difference between Eastern and Western RPGs, is it's a role-playing game. With Eastern role-playing games, they give you a role that's already set. You know, it's someone else's story and they're telling it to you. In Western RPGs, you're the role player. You're actually getting to decide your own role as a hero or even a bad guy. You know, like with the Fable games, you get to choose your own destiny, whether it's bad or good. So I feel like that's what truly separates them, is the type of role that you're actually playing. If you're filling someone else's shoes or if you're making your own.
Rasheed, when you're looking for an RPG, what do you prefer? Do you prefer the freedom of choice like a Western RPG, or do you prefer more of the kind of the tailor-made or the already created path that a JRPG? I mean, or does it change from case to case?
I prefer the linear because you have a solid understanding of the game and what the game was made to be.
Yeah.
Like Mass Effect, and I'm going to keep going back to Mass Effect because it's a good game,
right?
But it's not one of my favorites. You can't clearly identify, in my opinion, you can't clearly identify all of the characters. Like they're not so memorable, in my opinion. I mean, you only remember a few, but you won't remember all the characters.
So what makes a character so memorable in something like Final Fantasy or in another JRPG then? Because like you keep bringing up the fact that Mass Effect doesn't have memorable characters, or such and such Western RPG wouldn't have memorable characters. What about a Eastern RPG makes their characters memorable to you?
Personality.
Okay.
Music. They have their own theme.
Right.
Their style of dress. You know, these all make you remember a character, and I think the Western RPG has lost that.
See, I would argue that the Western RPG characters are stronger and more defined. I think the whole Mass Effect community, the number one thing people love are the characters. Garrus is a badass.
See, that's one character that I was going to mention. He's one character.
Rex, Grunt, even all the Mass Effect 2 characters, with the exception of maybe Jacob. No one gives a about Jacob.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. But
he kind of just whines away.
Yeah, he's just there. He looks like Kanye West. I don't like the guy. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody else though, Morden is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Thane is a badass. Like, and you can go talk to these guys one-on-one, and I feel like you get a deeper understanding with these characters than with any other JRPG character ever, because you could talk to Garrus about sexual conquests. But, you go talk to some JRPG character, they're going to have something limited to say. And it's usually about their subplot. Like, Barrett's like, oh, I got a daughter named Marlene. Damn it. Like, it doesn't go any deeper than that. You know what I mean? Like,
that is true. They do have pre-set up conversations.
Yeah.
But see, okay, so here's a big difference, too, is the fact that in JRPGs, you pretty much have to talk to everybody because you might get a special item or you might open up a side quest or something like that. In the Western RPGs that are so open, it takes up too much time to talk to everybody. And yes, you'll still get those quests where you need to, talk to this person and see this person there. But for the most part, you don't want to waste your time doing that because it's filler for the story and to make it seem more realistic, but it doesn't matter.
There are a lot of characters in both genres that are kind of just filler, like villagers. Like, you go talk to some villager and they'll say one thing, it's not that interesting.
Right.
And the same thing with Western RPGs. If you go and try and talk to every fucking guy in Skyrim, you'll be there forever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about anybody in Skyrim, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'm just out there to do my thing, And I don't know. It varies from game to game. But I think with especially the BioWare RPGs, you can definitively say that you get to know those characters. You have a lot of conversations with them, and they're unique, and they seem pretty fleshed out. And I don't know.
I kind of want to go through and ask, like, where y'all feel each side, what's the strength of each genre right now? Because my personal opinion is that the Japanese RPG, Eastern RPG is sort of falling right now. And I think that's a popular belief, and I think the Western RPG is falling, and I think you kind of feel the same. But Kristina, do you feel like the Eastern RPG is fine, or do you think it needs to? Is there anything that needs to be changed, or where do you think it stands right now?
I think with the recent games that I've played that are Eastern RPGs, I think they're actually good games. But the problem is that they're good games for their own right, but they're not comparing to the depth that Western RPGs offer now.
Right.
So are they good for competition? Probably not. But I mean, you also think, 10 years ago, pretty much every other game that was being sold or coming out was some kind of Japanese RPG. And now they're released maybe every 2 to 3 months, and it'll only be one game on a console.
Right.
So they're very rare now and selective, and I think that is honestly giving the publishers more time to pick, okay, we really need to make this game awesome and not do the cheesy little anime characters anymore. Do something that people can connect to and have fun with, but still keep the traditional JRPG sense.
Okay. Rasheed, where do you feel that each side is right now? Do you think one is stronger than the other? And if so, do you think the weaker one can do anything to change that?
I honestly think right now Western has it on lock.
Right.
They obviously have the plot and the score to beat out JRPGs right now. And JRPGs, they're leaning towards females. Honestly, a lot of them.
That's true.
A lot of them.
That is true.
She's testing it on this.
Yeah,
it's true.
I don't know. I can't sit through a JRPG too long. And I watch them. I haven't really played too many.
Right.
And I watch them, and I really can't. I don't want to. I don't want to be in this room right now.
I think part of the reason too is that I think JRPG changed. They lost sight of who their audience was, in my opinion, because if you look back at the older Final Fantasies, I mean, they always had a tie to anime almost. Like Chrono Trigger was, the characters were designed by Toriyama, and I almost feel maybe Chrono Trigger started that path. Once it got tied to anime, they just it was like an avalanche. Every JRPG had to be like anime-like.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the old Dragon Warriors, the old Final Fantasies. They weren't typically just anime characters.
This is true.
There was knights, there was white mages, and they were like, it was more like a Western thing, like a Dungeons and Dragons classes or something.
Right.
Then you get to 7, 8, 9, 10. Every Final Fantasy after that seems to go more into anime and cosplay, You know what I mean?
Right.
That style.
And
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm in complete agreement with that, and I think that it would be good for Japanese RPGs to kind of move toward that. And I think like you said, not all of them are anime characters and stuff like that. Now you see more there, and you still have the Star Ocean games that occasionally come out and stuff like that. But I mean, we're still kind of in that anime stage, and hopefully they can kind of return back to those roots. But honestly, we could sit and probably discuss this for a whole other episode or two. So unfortunately, we're out of time today, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you for tuning into this episode. Next week, we'll discuss action stars of the 80s and 90s and the state of the action star today. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Ultness or go to our website, ultness.com. And please leave comments and talk about whether you feel you stand on the side of Eastern or Western RPG and why that's so. But as always, thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you next time on That's Old.
One thing I'd like to see, what if they did a game like Mass Effect, just change the battle system, make it a turn-based battle system?
It's still boring.
No,
Shepard's still boring.
Power in space. What's the issue?
No, that'd be Jack Bauer.
I don't see how you can say that Shepard is any lamer than the JRPG silent character.
You get to choose what you do with each character, right?
Mass Effect.
Right. So
Okay.
there's no clear defined character.
Every structure that's been you get handheld through the game, don't you?
No, I'm talking about character
I think
development.
the most thing we can take away from this is, like, obviously, I don't prefer a very linear storytelling experience in RPG. I kind of want this open world experience like I had to an extent in Mass Effect, but also in Skyrim. And from you two, it sounds like you're more into the linear side of things, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's what you prefer in your RPG.
And then there was always the illusion of choice in the JRPG. Like, whenever they're like,
Of
hey,
course,
hey,
yeah.
you want to do this? And they give you yes or no. Like, if you play Golden Sun, you can say no, and the guy makes the face, he's like, no. And they're like,
Yeah.
but are you
Yeah,
sure?
it brings back
You
up,
sure?
yes.
You want to go kill the dragon, right?
No.
But yeah, there's a dragon, you have to kill him. No. And you can keep saying no forever, but
And then it's
it'll
gonna
keep
up.
asking.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I know that.
So it's like, but thou must.
No. But you have to. No.
No.